want to talk about the leader as a system architect. So what does that mean exactly? Well, I believe that all systems and all context is local. So it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or your frontline supervisor, everyone has to take responsibility for designing the system that they use and their team uses to help solve problems. Now, if you're the CEO or division president or factory manager, you might have layers in your system architecture. And if you're a frontline supervisor, you might have lots of layers that are controlled and predetermined for you, but you still have factors that you control that are contextual to your situation. You know, an IT team that deals with help tickets and has a high cadence of problem solving might be very different than a strategy team or a product development team that has perhaps a lower cadence and a longer time frame. And so these are just examples of how the context is local and situational. And as the leader, you have to make sure that your overall problem-solving system works, both for the people in your team and for the problems that you have. So what are some elements of what we talk about in terms of system architecture? Well, one is what I consider managing the problem landscape. What does that mean? Well, the problem landscape is where all the problems come from in your organization. How do you expose to them, and how do you know where they're coming from? Now, when we talk about sort of a good, strong thinker, we think about problems coming from our metrics. You know, our metrics determine performance for our processes, and they determine normal from abnormal, and they could trigger the right problem solving. They identify when we have a problem. We also have standards, and when a standard doesn't work, or when we fail to follow a standard, now we have a problem. But we also get problems from our customers, from our inbox, from people darkening our doorstep and showing up and saying, we have a problem. And so all of these are different sources of problems within our team coming at us. Now, how do we manage that? How do we see all of that as one landscape and understand how those things come together so we see them as one set of problems rather than metrics problems and email inbox problems? So how is our system and on our rules and our processes set up to establish our problem landscape so we really know what we have to work on? A next element to be thinking about is what we call the andon, or help chain. Andon is just a Japanese word that means signal or light or lantern. And it was really used in this context to signal for a help for a problem, which is why I like the term help chain. Help chain is how do we link the help to the problem. And again, all context is local, so how do we link the right help to the right problem, and how do we design our systems and our processes to make that happen? So there's 5 elements in any help chain. First, we need to think about what is a problem. We need a standard definition for what is a problem if we're going to make help chains work. So, for example, if I think we don't have a problem until we're 5% behind schedule, and you think we have a problem when we're 20% behind schedule, well, somewhere between 5 and 20, we're going to be very misaligned. We need a common definition for that. We need a standard definition of what is a problem, and that definition might move over time. But if we don't have a clear understanding of what is a problem and what is not, then it makes responding to problems very difficult. The second element is we need a way to detect that. How are we going to determine whether we have a problem or not? Now, in places like manufacturing, this is often much easier because we have a high cadence, we have visibility, we have equipment that might alert us to a problem. But in product development, for example, it might be very hard until we get to a testing phase or miss a milestone. And so we look to have things like a higher granularity of work, high transparency of work, so that we can see work progressing, and that allows us to detect problems earlier rather than wait for us to miss a milestone downstream. So we need a method to detect the problem once we know what a problem is. The third element is a way to escalate or a way to connect that problem to the problem solver. Now, again, in manufacturing, that might be a signal or a light that goes off, an alert that the equipment sends out. In something like product development, it could be something like a daily huddle. A huddle where we're coming together with high granularity, high cadence, high transparency to say, hey, in this meeting, we're behind schedule on A, B, or C. And so it doesn't have to be a terribly formal process, but we need to know where to go with that. If we kind of think that we're going to stick our head out the window and yell that we have a problem or start sending emails, we probably don't have a really crisp way in order to signal that we have a problem. The fourth element is we have to define who are we sending the problem to. Now, in most organizations, the first thought is we go up the chain. We go up the organizational chart, and most of the time that actually is the appropriate answer. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's other expertise or other people set up to handle that problem. They have a particular skill set or particular capacity to respond to that problem. So who are we signaling a problem to? And then fifth, and I don't want to say most importantly, but very important to get right, is what is the standard response? That includes time, but also how we respond. If I signal a problem and days go by before I get help, now I start wondering what to do. If I don't have a standard response, then we're left with that problem going unattended. So those are the 5 elements. What is a problem? How do we detect it? How do we escalate it? Who do we escalate it to? And how do we respond? You put those 5 pieces together and now we have a help chain. And as a manager, as a leader in our organization, we have an accountability to make sure that those help chains are in place so the problems get the right attention. A third element of designing our system, of architecting our system, is what is our process, what are our heuristics for prioritizing problems? No matter what day of the week we're talking about, we're probably going to have more problems than we can deal with. Whether we're talking about firefighting as a response or systematically going after the problem, no matter what, we're still going to probably be overwhelmed. We have plenty of abnormal conditions to deal with. So how do we prioritize our problems? Is it customer first? Is it severity? Is it what we can solve easily and get that off of our plate? We need some heuristics or some rules or a process by which we prioritize our problems. So if we can develop heuristics or rules where teams can do that on their own, that's fantastic. That allows for self-management and easy on-the-fly dynamic prioritization. It could be that we have a daily or a weekly meeting or huddle where we do the prioritization real time and we start to talk about what needs to get our attention. So no matter what, if we have all these problems coming at us, the team and the organization needs some way to consistently prioritize the right problems to the top so we get the right attention to the right stuff. The last piece of architecting our system is really making sure that we have, our team has, and our organization has the right capacity and capability to solve problems. So let's break those 2 pieces down. Capacity means that we actually have the time carved out, dedicated, focused on going after problem solving. If we treat problem solving like something we do after our day job is over, well then we're never going to get to it. We're never going to get around, and problem solving is not part of our system, but something above and beyond it. We need problem solving to be part of our system. And as a leader, our job is to make sure that we design our capacity, our rules, our time allocation, and all of those pieces to make sure that there is time allocated for problem solving. In organizations that use agile systems, we have very clear rules for how we allocate our capacity. And there's almost always some time allocated for problem solving and continuous improvement. Some organizations just block off time, an hour a week, half a day a week, whatever that might be. Others just put rules in place that say when this happened, we stop and we start to solve that problem. But whatever it is, as a leader, it's our job to make sure that that capacity is there, that that system is in place to make sure that problems get their attention. The capability is the other part, and there's sort of two parts of building that capability. One, ensuring that the coaching, the learning, the reflection, even the training is in place so that the capability is growing over time. The other part of it is bringing the right capability to the right problem. Some problems anybody on the team can solve, but certain problems need the right person, the right capability, the right skill set. And how do we make sure that those right skill sets and those right people are connected to those right problems? So these are four areas that, as a leader, it's our job to architect our system. So we think about our problem landscape, our help chain, our prioritization, and our capacity and capability. And whether, again, as a frontline supervisor, 80% of that might be predetermined, but we still have to tailor the system for our local context. Even down to, I have a less mature team or a more mature team, and that might change the local context that I deal with. And if I'm the CEO of an organization, what are the places that I'm going to try to standardize across the entire company, and where am I going to allow my leaders to customize or tailor their system locally? This is our job as a system architect, and one of the key things to make sure that it's not just the culture and the capability that leads to good problem solving, but we set up our systems to help our team succeed.